We are officially in the 2025 offseason, New Orleans Saints fans. So let's talk about my perfect offseason plan for this offseason. That's very, very important. It's very, very crucial that the Saints get things right. And I believe that I have a 5-step plan and a good little recipe in order to get things back on track. Welcome into Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I'm your host, Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, no matter where you are or how you're watching. We appreciate Who Dat Nation for making us a priority and checking in and hanging out with us every single day. Now let's recap the 2024 season because goodness gracious, it was terrible. A final record of 5-12, and the offense wasn't good. The defense wasn't good. Special teams was pretty solid, to give them credit. However, this team has a plethora of needs. Obviously, there were injuries. Obviously, the roster wasn't amazing. Obviously, the Saints fired Dennis Allen. But I don't want to utilize any of those as excuses. The fact that this roster was not built to sustain success is an issue. The fact that this roster could not win whenever injuries started to settle in is an issue. And so that is why I believe the New Orleans Saints must kill this off season. They have to crush it, they have to nail it, and they have to get things right. So that's why I got to tell you to subscribe to the channel, and I have to encourage you to lock us in. That way you don't miss a thing. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. In my personal opinion, this is the most important offseason in Saints history. Dare I say ever? I mean, definitely in recent memory. So do not miss a thing. A lot of changes are going to be made, a lot of news, a lot of rumors, and we're going to keep you up to date. First part of the plan, let's make a strong hire at head coach. And there's been a lot of guys that have been tied to the New Orleans Saints. There's got linked to the team. There's also been a lot of players or a lot of coaches that Saints fans like you and I want to be the next head coach. So here's 5 targets to keep an eye out for. The day of filming this video on January 6th, David Shaw also is interviewing for the head coaching job. So that's kind of an interesting idea. I don't really love it, but here's 5 names to keep an eye out for. Darren Rizzi, Aaron Glenn, who's one of my top choices, Joe Brady, Jon Gruden. He has been linked. There has been chatter that he might return to the NFL. I know he just started with Barstool and all that, but hey, if he wants to be an NFL coach, he will be a coach if a team will let him be that coach, and if the league will let him do just that. Mike Vrabel, interesting note here. Obviously, the Patriots just fired Girouard Mayo, so I think that he is the leading candidate in New England, but I got to just say this. I would love Mike Vrabel in New Orleans. It doesn't really matter who they hire. In my personal opinion, I could care less about who the head coach is. I just want it to be the right hire. I don't care if it's some Joe Schmo that actually ends up being the greatest head coach of all time. Could care less where he came from. I could care less about the background. I could care less about the history. I just want a good head coach. I want somebody who's going to win. I want somebody who's going to handle adversity. I want somebody who's going to be a tone setter. I want somebody who's going to be a culture builder. And I want a head coach that's going to bring success back to the great city of New Orleans and back to Caesars Superdome, because that's what Saints fans deserve. And quite frankly, that's something that's been missing for far too long. 4 seasons straight of missing the playoffs. Absolutely unacceptable by the standards that have been set in the last 20 years of the New Orleans Saints. Can't be doing that anymore. We need to get back on track. We need to get back on top. And I want to make sure that the Saints nail this head coaching hire. If you make a good decision here, you are fast-tracking this rebuild. You're fast-tracking getting back on track. However, if you fail, we will be revisiting this conversation again in a few years. Now, another step. You got to add playmakers on offense. Not just in the draft and not just in free agency. Hell, I think you got to make some trades as well. Whether you're trading people away, whether you're trading for people to come in, I think that you got to add playmakers on the offense, and I think you got to shed some of the fat. And to be totally honest, I got some draft targets. I got some free agent targets, and we're going to go through them real quick. Ted McMillan is one of my top options as a wide receiver. I really like Luther Burden. I think he could be an excellent option in the slot. And if you don't think slot wide receivers a need, I'll tell you to look at the Chargers offense and see what they've done with Ladd McConkey. I would absolutely love a lethal guy in the slot wide receiver position. Trey Harris, he's similar to Ted McMillan in my opinion in the sense of he fits the size profile that the Saints are missing. They need somebody that's a big-bodied, physical wide receiver, and I think that Ted McMillan or Trey Harris could be great options. Tyler Warren is the best tight end in college football right now. I would love to see him be in the black and gold, but a first-round pick in a top 10 feels like a stretch. Cam Skattebo, excuse me. Goodness gracious, please, for the love of God, if you can get him on day 2, snag him. Draft Cam Skattebo. I am going to be leading the charge with that because holy cow, it would be so fun to see the running back room get a massive boost. Because right now there's a lot of question marks behind Alvin Kamara. What's the deal with Kendre Miller? Can he stay healthy? Jury's still out. Jamal Williams will not be a part of this team next season in my thoughts. I don't think he will be around. So I think Cam Scatterbo could be an excellent draft target on day 2. Now, for free agency, if you're willing to spend the money, Tee Higgins would be an incredible, unbelievably great addition to the Saints wide receiver core. I also wouldn't hate Stephon Diggs. I know the Minneapolis Miracle has a sour taste in a lot of Saints fans' mouths, but hey, if the dude can play and he can keep the drama out of the locker room, I'm willing to take a chance on him. Aaron Jones, I know he's 30, but hey, he's been playing really, really good football for the Minnesota Vikings. Kind of found a new life out there. Najee Harris, I would love to add Najee Harris as a running back. I think he could be really good. I think he could fit or be a good complement to Alvin Kamara as his career starts to wind down in the next couple of seasons. And Justin Fields, if you want to add a quarterback, F it. Go sign Justin Fields. He can kind of do everything. He can run. He can throw. I don't think that it's going to be a big or massive problem if they want to go sign Justin Fields or anything. I'm not necessarily totally against it. My point being, though, the draft names are much, much more appealing. The free agency names, there's some older players. There's some divas. There's some expensive guys. If you want to really build the offense, if you really want to make this team, built for the future, you got to nail the draft. You have to hit on your draft picks, whether offensive linemen, whether they're offensive weapons like wide receiver, running back, tight end, quarterback for whatever reason. You cannot miss on these draft picks. You cannot miss in the first round. You cannot miss in the second round. If you miss on the fifth round, or not fifth round pick. If you miss on one of your fourth round picks, you miss on the sixth round, F it, whatever. First, second, third round, you have to nail those draft picks. There's no question about it. So please, Mickey Loomis, please, New Orleans Saints front office, just do right in the draft. Don't draft project players. Get guys who are really good, talented guys right now. If you want the Saints to crush this draft, if you're with me, if you think that these draft classes over the past few years have been underwhelming, I need you to like this video. Hit the thumbs up icon because I want the New Orleans Saints front office. I know that they watch these videos. I've seen them in the comments. I've seen them respond to the takes that I've shared. Like the video. This will send a message. Hit the thumbs up icon, and let's get the Saints to crush this draft. We're not taking any chances. Don't jinx it. Alrighty. I also want to improve the offensive line. I know that the O-line is kind of a hot topic in terms of whether or not they've been a good unit. I don't think they were all that good this year. I think the offensive line needs to improve. I think that they need to add some talent, not just in the draft, but in free agency as well. Because, when you go back to how this season transpired, I will give a lot of credit where it's due. The tackles, in my opinion, were actually not terrible. Trevor Penning took a lot of good steps this year. Taliesin Fuaga showed a lot of promise as a rookie. There were problems. There were penalties. There were missed blocks. There were pressures allowed. All that stuff is true. But I think that the main issue, honestly, was in the interior. When Eric McCoy was hurt, the center's position in the interior offensive line was just a nightmare, especially with Nick Saldivari and Lucas Patrick also dealing with injuries. Cesar Ruiz at one point dealt with some injuries. So, the interior offensive line, in my opinion, is a really, really big need. And just depth entirely across the board. I'd like a new center to back up Eric McCoy, a talented guy. So just in case you have a good insurance policy, there's nothing wrong with that. And then on top of that, I think that you need to add depth to the tackle position as well in case that there's injuries in those respective positions as well. So here's a couple draft targets for you. I went one position across the board from left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. All of these guys I think would be good options. I'm not necessarily saying day one for all of them, but just in general, I really, really, really like Tate Ratledge as an offensive guard. I think he could do a good job challenging Cesar Ruiz and possibly taking over that position in the future. Tyler Booker is a solid left guard. Jake Majors, though, in my opinion, has been the anchor and has been the core of the Texas Longhorns offensive line. Kelvin Banks, I think he's fine, but he's been exposed by a lot of really good teams, and he's not looked too hot against high-level talent. So, we'll see what happens throughout the remainder of the college football playoff, but in terms of draft, you got a lot of talent that you could go and grab in multiple different rounds here in a few months in Green Bay. Now, for free agency, obviously, you don't have a lot of money to spend. You don't have all the diamonds and all the King's gold and all the jewelry and all that. So I don't think you're going to be able to land a Trey Smith. I think that he might be out of your price range. Will Fries, though, maybe he's a guy that you could go and get. Kevin Zeitler, he is an older player, but he's very reliable, and I think that he could be a good addition just as to be that Lucas Patrick kind of guy where he's the starter. He'll kind of teach the young guys something, and after a year or two, he'll probably be out of here. Ronnie Stanley and Cam Robinson as tackles have been pretty solid as well. I think that the free agency market for offensive linemen, it'll get expensive quick, and also I think that it's not the best group, so I really, again, just goes back to what I said earlier, you got to crush the draft. Make good picks in terms of the trenches as well. Now, really quick, we got a handful of more discussion topics to get to around my 2025 perfect offseason. But really quick, got to give a shout out to Game Time for sponsoring today's video. And it is time for you to get some tickets because the playoffs are here. And one of my favorite ways to spend the weekend is going to live events like concerts and comedy shows and sporting events with my homies like producer Reed in the chair right now, or even my girlfriend Maddie, friends, family, all that good stuff. And thanks to the Game Time app, I've been able to create so many new memories already in 2025, but definitely I've created a lot in 2024. Playoff games are a great place for you to make memories with your people, whether that's a son, whether that's a dad, an uncle, a cousin, whoever it is, or just one of your homies. If you got a friend that's a diehard fan of a certain team, you want to go to the playoffs, hey, get them some tickets and go make some memories because we got a really good deal for you if you download the Game Time app. You create an account and use code CHATSPORTS. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. And Game Time has a feature called Game Time Picks that's really useful, and it helps filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets that you knew you're not interested anyway. So check out Game Time Picks when you download the Game Time app, and make sure you create an account and use code CHATSPORTS. That's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but once again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, another thing that the New Orleans Saints need to do, they got to get a defensive overhaul. This defense was horrible. I'm going back and looking at the numbers right now. They were terrible in terms of letting up points. They were not good in the red zone. They were in the middle. They were league average in the red zone. They were 15th out of 32, so just over 50 at the top half. Still not good enough for me. Third down percentage, 41.1%. Not good. The defense was bad in 2024. They were not good in terms of getting sack production. They got a lot of pressures. Credit to Carl Granderson and Chase Young especially. They got a lot of pressures, but the sack production was terrible. And Brian Brzee led the team in sacks this year, which credit to him. But I really think that when you have these defensive ends, they should probably be up there, at least tied with the defensive tackle. I don't want to be too critical of those players, but when you tied for 18th in the league in sack production, that's pretty embarrassing. And quite frankly, it was also bad against the run. You were second to last in opponent's yard per game. Over 141 opponents' yards per game against the run. Is that not incredible? There's no way that's right. Hold on. I got to make sure this is right here. Because I can't even fathom that. So opponent rushing yards per game. That is true. I honestly had to fact check myself right here. That is a fact. According to teamrankings.com, opponent rushing yards per game 141.4. That's unbelievable. That is unreal. You also gave up way too many big plays over the air. Through the air, you were gashed. You were gashed by mobile quarterbacks. You were torn to pieces. You were picked apart in the passing game. This defense was really, really bad. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but somebody's got to do it. The team will not be fixed overnight. This defensive roster will not be fixed this season. It's going to take a couple years. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think he's a good little cornerstone piece at the cornerback position. But Alontae Taylor, what's going on here? Do you bring back Ugo Amadi? Do you go draft a Will Johnson? Do you go sign somebody in free agency? What about the linebacker position? What about the safety position? What about the defensive line? Tyrann Mathieu's not getting any younger. Jordan Howden, he's had a more limited role, but he's been okay. This defense is going to need a massive overhaul. And unfortunately, just considering the cap situation and considering the draft capital that you currently have, you're not going to be able to fix everything right this offseason. So please, again, I keep going back to it, but I cannot emphasize enough. Please make smart picks. Make good free agency signings. Don't go get developmental players. Don't sign a guy who just has a good name, that was good 5 years ago. I don't want that. I want good quality players that are going to have an impact, that have a role, that are going to do something and make some sort of good noise around this football team. So defensively, they need a lot. Like, I think offense, they need a lot over there, but defensively, figure that out. Like, holy cow. The bread and butter of the Saints has always been the defense, except for a handful of years. And at least in the last handful of years, it's been the defense has been keeping it alive. During the Drew Brees era, there's a handful of years where the defense was terrible, but the good years, the defense was a massive portion of the success. So name a player you want to see added to the defense, whether it's draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's trade. I don't care what you pick. Just name a player that needs to get onto the Saints roster. Lastly, got to clear up the cap space. You knew we were going to talk about it. So let's talk money. Get your money up or get your funny up. Currently, the Saints are very funny. Not a lot of cap space to share. Not a lot of cap space to spend. They're roughly $66.8 million over the cap, and that's according to OTC, overthecap.com. Spotrac has it a little bit differently. It's about $72 million. So, it's kind of in that range right there. But $66.8 million over the cap is what we're going to call it here. That's a lot. That's a lot of money to clear up. And, at one point in time, that was fine. I was okay with justifying that. But when you are only getting 5 wins and you're losing to teams like the Raiders, like, kicking the can doesn't work. It's not a good plan. It's not a good idea. And you're seeing that because there's a lack of depth. There's a lack of quality talent behind the high-level starters. I don't like it. I'm tired of kicking the can. Let's figure this shit out and let's make something happen moving forward so we can be competitive once again and make additions in the regular season. Make trades during the trade deadline that's not cutting away money, but it's actually adding talent. Like, that's what I miss being a Saints fan. And I actually have a pretty easy plan for us. In terms of getting cap compliant, you save $64.5 million just by doing these 4 moves. Obviously, there's players that you got to cut. There will be other things that you got to do, restructures and all that good stuff. But just between these 4 things, remember, $66.8 million, you clear $64.5 million here. Like, Cam Jordan, I don't think there's any guarantee he comes back next year. He could retire. He could return. I think, honestly, it's kind of a 50-50. It's just he doesn't want to play for somewhere else. He wants to be a Saint. So if the Saints are like, look, you either move on or you either move on and go play somewhere else or you retire, I think he's going to opt to retire. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know if he will or not, but maybe. Ryan Ramczyk, I expect him to retire. He's had a lot of injuries. I don't expect him to be part of the team any further. Derek Carr, if you restructure him, you can actually save $30 million in terms of cap space for 2025. And Eric McCoy, you can save $5.5 million if you restructure his contract. But with Derek Carr, you could also make a cap casualty if you wanted to just get rid of some of that money, just move on, start over, just be like, you know what? Okay, fine. We'll eat the cash, we'll move forward, and we'll just be done here. You can actually save $30 million on or if you make him a post-June 1 cut, and you save $40 million if you make him a post-June 1 trade. He does have a no-trade clause, so we'd have to waive that, but you do have the ability to save some money there. However, this is really important, and in the latest injury updates, they've been saying that there's still some time. Like, Derek Carr still needs to get some extra progression. He's still not fully ready. He's still not healthy. So in terms of that, this is very important here. If he cannot pass a physical by March 17th, the Saints owe Derek Carr $30 million guaranteed in 2025. So if that's the case, you're not going to cut him. You're not going to pay him $30 million and then cut him after that. You're going to keep him around. So, keep an eye on this. This is something to very, very important to monitor here. So we'll have to see what happens with Derek Carr. I think that there's a lot of different avenues the Saints could go, but I want you to let me know, what is Carr's future? What is Carr's future? Share your thoughts. Do you think the Saints will keep him? Do you think they'll cut him? Or do you think they'll trade him? Let me know down in the comment section. Share your thoughts and let your voices be heard. And Saints fans, I just want to say thank you so much for helping us finally cross over the 40,000 subscriber mark. We had a hell of a season, over 3 million views across the channel, over 11,000 subscribers gained during the football season. It was absolutely electric. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and made this season special. It was tough. It was not fun. But hey, we finally made it to the offseason. We can look forward and we can try to start fixing this mess. So Saints fans, I will be with you every step of the way during the offseason. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.